Patrick Vanderbolt was not the kind of man people would immediately suspect. He dressed clean, spoke politely, and drove a quiet car. To neighbors, he was just another Dutch businessman who left early and came home late. But beneath that normal surface, a storm was brewing, one that connected him to a chain of events far darker than anyone imagined. Patrick had built a reputation for being reliable. He managed logistics, transport, and international shipments. His clients saw him as efficient. What they didn't know was that the same skill that made him good in legitimate business made him useful to others. Men who didn't ship coffee or furniture, but something far more valuable. The Netherlands, with its massive ports and highways, became a silent playground for traffickers. And Patrick, with his access and experience, was a key player. He knew which trucks could pass customs unnoticed, which containers were too boring for random checks. That was his edge. That was his curse. It began with one connection. A man introduced as a business partner from Rotterdam. Then another from Spain. Soon, Patrick's phone was full of coded numbers and hidden conversations. It wasn't violence that pulled him in. It was profit. Easy money. Fast. Clean. No fingerprints. He learned to mix the illegal with the legal. A shipment of car parts might hide sealed packages. A delivery of tropical fruits could contain tightly wrapped blocks of cocaine. Patrick didn't touch the drugs. He only made sure they moved. But in the eyes of the law, that was enough to make him part of the system. Week after week, the transports went smoothly. He earned more than he ever had before. The luxury grew. A new car, better clothes, private dinners. Yet behind his smile was constant fear. He knew if something went wrong, the men behind the deal wouldn't forgive mistakes. It was late one night when Patrick got a strange call. A shipment was delayed at the port. Customs wanted to inspect it. His heart froze. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He made quick calls, trying to fix it. But by morning, the container was seized. And someone had whispered his name. Dutch authorities had been monitoring suspicious cargo movements for months. When Patrick's company name appeared twice in their data, they started digging. They followed digital footprints, emails, and payment trails. Slowly, the picture formed. A quiet man at the center of something vast. At the port, dock workers began talking. Someone had seen men open a sealed container before it left. Another remembered Patrick's car parked nearby at odd hours. Small rumors became reports. Reports became evidence. One evening, Patrick met with two men in a small cafe near Antwerp. They discussed routes, delays, and numbers. Unknown to them, one of those men was already under surveillance. That single meeting would later be used as the missing link in the case against him. Investigators didn't move immediately. They watched, gathered, recorded. Weeks turned into months. Patrick noticed cars following him sometimes, but convinced himself he was being paranoid. He wasn't. As police mapped connections, Patrick's name appeared beside others. Men linked to international cartels. His case was no longer local. It was part of something larger. A European network moving tons of cocaine from South America through Dutch ports. A friend told him to step back, to disappear. "They're watching," the man warned. But Patrick thought he was too careful. He believed the system wouldn't touch him. That pride would be his undoing. By now, Patrick had upgraded his life. A luxury apartment in The Hague, a car that gleamed like wealth itself. But money has a scent, and soon detectives began connecting his lifestyle to hidden cash deposits that didn't match his company's income. When investigators raided one of his warehouses, they didn't find drugs. They found something more powerful, a notebook. Inside were initials, coded notes, and payment lists. At first, it looked meaningless, but once decoded, it exposed a timeline of movements that matched drug transport records. Early one morning, as Patrick left for work, unmarked cars surrounded him. Within minutes, he was handcuffed. Calm but pale, He asked only one question. "Who told you?" The officers didn't answer. Within hours, Dutch and Belgian news outlets reported, "Businessman arrested in connection to international drug transport." His face was everywhere. Friends avoided calls. His family stayed indoors. His name became a headline, not a person. In custody, Patrick maintained his silence. He denied knowing anything. He told investigators he was a logistics expert, not a criminal. But the evidence spoke louder than his words. What Patrick didn't know was that one of his closest partners had already turned informant. That man's testimony, combined with the seized ledger, painted Patrick as a central figure. Not the mastermind, but the bridge between legal trade and illegal cargo. During trial, he sat still, emotionless. Witnesses spoke, lawyers argued, journalists scribbled. Each word tightened the rope around his reputation. When the verdict came, the courtroom was silent. Patrick van der Bolt was sentenced for his role in facilitating international drug transport. The judge called him a man who used intelligence for destruction. His assets were frozen. His company collapsed. The people who once admired him avoided his name. Overnight, he went from respected entrepreneur to a cautionary tale. His wife, humiliated and heartbroken, moved away with their children. Neighbors whispered, friends disappeared. His family paid for a crime they never understood. In prison, Patrick became quiet and reflective. The silence was heavy, broken only by distant footsteps and closing doors. He often sat alone, staring at the floor, replaying choices that brought him there. Only one person visited him regularly, his younger brother. They spoke in low tones through glass, sometimes not at all. There was nothing left to say. Some still believe Patrick took the fall for someone higher up, a man with influence who used him as a shield. But Patrick never confirmed or denied it. His silence protected others, or maybe himself. His arrest caused panic in the network. Routes were changed, phones destroyed, trust vanished. What had been a smooth operation turned into chaos. For investigators, Patrick's case was a major win. It exposed a logistics system that had allowed traffickers to move freely through Europe. But they knew it was only one piece of a larger machine. In Rotterdam, people began whispering again. Patrick talked. Patrick kept quiet. No one really knew. In that world, truth is a matter of survival, not justice. Months later, a journalist received a handwritten letter signed P. It described the greed, fear, and lies of the trade. Some believed it was Patrick's attempt at confession. Others said it was just rumor. Even after prison, his influence lingered. People still used his old transport routes, his methods. The shadow of Patrick van der Bolt remained long after the man himself disappeared from headlines. Antwerp, Rotterdam, Amsterdam. The ports never sleep. Another ship arrives, another deal is made. The world forgets quickly. Patrick once said to a friend, "It's just business. Nobody gets hurt." But in the end, everyone did. Families, partners, reputations. The mirror shattered. While Patrick served his sentence, new names rose in the underworld. Younger, hungrier, more reckless. They learned from his mistakes, or thought they did. Years later, a documentary team requested an interview with Patrick. He refused. "I've already said too much," he told the prison guard. That was his final word to the outside world. One of his old warehouses still stands, empty and cold. The walls are marked with numbers, the floor with tire tracks, silent witnesses to what once moved through there. One of the lead detectives later said, "Patrick wasn't evil. He was greedy, and greed doesn't stop until it burns everything." The story of Patrick van der Bolt became a teaching case in Dutch criminology classes. How legitimate trade can hide organized crime. His name turned from scandal to study. Time erases faces. Few remember his story now, But in the files of the Dutch National Police, his case remains a marker, a reminder of how power, money, and silence collide. If Patrick had stopped when he still could, his story would have ended differently. But like many before him, he believed he was smarter than the system. He wasn't. And that's the tragedy of men who think they can control a storm they helped create.